Hi, kindergarten. Good morning. Getting ready to read our next book. Since we just celebrated Easter, I thought what better book to read than one about an egg hunt. Now, the question is, are our Dinosaur Train friends going to be going on an Easter egg hunt or a different kind of hunt? We'll have to read and see. And remember, there will be questions underneath this video for after you listen. You can go and answer those questions with your families. So let's see what kind of egg hunt the Dinosaur Train friends go on. Buddy and Dawn were playing tag on the beach in Pteranodon Terrace when Buddy spotted something. Dawn, come look, Buddy cried. Dawn ran to where Buddy was standing. There were mysterious pink objects scattered around in the sand. They look like eggs. But what are they doing here? Buddy asked. They're not really doing much. Buddy and Dawn couldn't figure out why the eggs were on the beach, but they knew what that meant. This is a job for Buddy the detective and Detectin' Dawn, Buddy said. Buddy and Dawn made their best detective poses. It was time to get down to business. They needed an egg expert, and they knew just who to call. Mom! Buddy and Dawn shouted together. Mrs. Pteranodon was doing her daily wing exercises up by the nest. When she heard her kids calling, Mrs. Pteranodon rushed down to the beach. Wah! What happened? She asked. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, Buddy said, except Dawn and I found these things on the beach, and we think they look like eggs. Mrs. Pteranodon finished Buddy's sentence. What mother would leave her eggs all over the beach? I'll gather them together and make a little nest in the sand to protect them. We'll help, said Buddy and Dawn. Finally, the nest was finished. Buddy, Dawn, and Mrs. Pteranodon admired their creation. The eggs were nestled snugly inside. What a beautiful nest, Mrs. Pteranodon said. The eggs will be comfortable here until we find out who they belong to. Sorry, moving my camera so you guys can see a little better. Buddy and Dawn counted the eggs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's count those together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's a lot of eggs, said Mrs. Pteranodon. Someone must miss them very much. Mrs. Pteranodon flew off to ask the grown-ups on the beach about the missing eggs, while Buddy and Dawn kept watch over the nest. It was the perfect opportunity to practice their detective work, except there wasn't so much to detect. The eggs just sat there. Buddy and Dawn went back to playing tag. You're it, said Buddy, as he fell on top of Dawn. Okay, fine, said Dawn, but look, the eggs! Buddy saw a creature running away from the nest. Buddy and Dawn rushed to the nest to count the eggs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Someone had taken one of the eggs. But who? Asked Dawn. Wait a minute. Look, said Buddy. He was pointing to footprints in the sand. Buddy and Dawn looked at the footprints, and then they looked at their own feet. The footprints were too big to be theirs. Maybe they're the egg stealer's footprints, said Dawn. Look how big that foot is. Wow, that's big. Who do you think it could be? Gonna have to find out, huh? Some creature is stealing these eggs, Buddy said, and we're gonna need help to find it. Miss Pteranodon was already talking to the grown-ups, so Buddy decided he would see if any of the kids at the beach knew anything. Dawn kept his eyes on the eggs. By the time Buddy got back to the nest with a group of helpers, Dawn was fast asleep. Don! Don! Buddy shouted, shaking his brother's shoulders. Don was startled and jumped into the air, detecting Don, wide awake and on the case. Shiny, Tiny, Cindy Ximoless, and Keenan Kirostenotes. Ooh, that was a big word. Kirostenotes. All gathered around the nest as Buddy explained the mystery of the missing egg. That's terrible, gasped Cindy. You did the right thing by calling me, said Tiny. Detective Tiny, at your service. Tiny pointed one by one at everyone in the group. Anyone could be the culprit, she said. She pointed her finger at Cindy. It could be you! Why did you take the egg? Cindy was flustered and started stuttering, but promised she was not an egg stealer. It was time to get back to business. Buddy showed the gang the mysterious creature's three-toed footprints and described the creature that he saw running away from the nest. It was tallish, and its nose was kind of beaky, Don said. Actually, it looked a lot like Keenan. Everyone turned to look at Keenan. Oh, come on, said Keenan. Why would I want an egg? Why don't you tell us, said Buddy. Keenan didn't like his friends accusing him of stealing the eggs. Buddy wanted Keenan to put his foot in the print that they found in the sand. If it doesn't fit, we'll know it wasn't you. Sure enough, Keenan's foot was much smaller than the print. He couldn't be the egg stealer. Happy now, said Keenan. How would you feel if somebody accused you of taking something that you didn't take or taking something that was theirs? That probably would not make you feel very good either, would it? So imagine how Keenan feels when they're accusing him. Tiny wasn't paying attention to her friends. She was looking at the nest. Buddy, didn't you say there were 6 eggs? I only see 5. This is an even bigger mystery than we thought, said Dawn. If the egg stealer isn't Keenan, Buddy said, it must have been somebody really big. It might be the meanest, scariest dinosaur ever. Everybody shuddered and started to run away. Wait, you guys, said Tiny. Not even the biggest, meanest, scariest looking dinosaur ever is a match for us. Tiny counted everyone in the group. We're the Super 6, he said triumphantly. Tiny was right. The friends all brought their hands in for a cheer. Go Super 6! They said before spreading out to find more clues. They have a lot of work to do to figure out who's taking these eggs. I think I found something, hollered Cindy. She pointed to a trail of footprints leading up to some bushes. But after the bushes, there were no more footprints. I have a hypothesis, said Buddy. The egg stealer has wings and stealing eggs and flying away with them. The footprints must have stopped when the egg stealer started to fly. So he makes a hypothesis. What do you think a hypothesis is? Based on what we read, he said, I have a hypothesis. The egg stealer has wings for stealing eggs and flying away with them. The footprints must have stopped when the egg stealer started to fly. So what would be another word for hypothesis? That's one of your questions below. So think about that. What is another word for hypothesis? There was a loud squawking in the distance. The Super 6 rushed back to the beach nest. Stop, egg stealer! They yelled at the winged dinosaur that was crouching over the eggs. Egg stealer, the dinosaur said. I'm Olivia Oviraptor. I'm Olivia Oviraptor, and these are my eggs. Olivia explained that the waves had rolled over her nest and scattered the eggs all over the beach. Even worse, she said that someone had stolen the eggs and gathered them into their own nest. Oops. That might have been us, said Buddy. But we weren't stealing the eggs. We were just keeping them safe until we found out who they belonged to. Olivia thanked Buddy and the gang for keeping her eggs safe. She grabbed one of the remaining eggs and started walking towards her nest in the bushes. The Super Six picked up the other eggs to help out, and they followed Olivia into the bushes. How do we know the eggs are really yours? Dawn asked Olivia. Suddenly, the eggs started to crack. 7 adorable oviraptors poked their heads out from their shells, and they looked just like Olivia. Oh, that's how. The end. So, who was the egg stealer really? It was Buddy and Dawn. And it wasn't an Easter egg hunt like we thought, was it? It was more of a detective mystery. So, pretty interesting little book. So, you can answer the questions down below, and we'll see you next week. Enjoy!